Hi there, welcome back to another exciting Nintendo Power review. And today we're covering the Super Star Wars issue, which is volume 42, and it is from November of 1992. Let's see, what have we got in this issue? We've got Joe and Mac, we've got Mega Man for the NES. Mega Man? Just Mega Man? Oh, I have to flip ahead here. Hold on. Oh my god, it is Mega Man. It's the original Mega Man. This is from 1992. Must be some kind of retro review. Anyway, we'll get to that. We've also got Super Mario Land 2. We've got WWF Superstars 2, brother. We've got Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. We've got Super Star Wars. We've got Space Megaforce and Axlay. Two of my favorite shooters. Now, I remember reading this issue in the library in my hometown. The Player's Pulse this month has basically no letters in it. This is very odd. Alright, here we go. Joe and Mac for the NES. Here I thought Joe and Mac was just a Super NES game. I did not know there was an NES version. It looks just like the Super NES version, except with NES visuals. You know, Joe and Mac is a game that I've always kind of wanted to check out, but just have never gotten to it. Oh boy, here we go. It's Crash and the Boys Street Challenge. Look at these bad dudes right here. They're rad to the max, these guys. Very 80s looking artwork there, which is funny because it's a game from the early 90s. Okay, hold on a sec. When you look at this picture, what do you think that this game is about? You think it's, you know, it's about these tough kids, right? And you know, they come from a rough background. You know, they've probably been in and out of the system a few times. You know, they've been a bitch, they've had a bitch. Whatever you think this game is about from looking at this picture, it's not. It is actually a Olympic game simulator. I'm not kidding. You do 400-meter hurdles, you do golf, judo. There's a, whatchamacallit, the thing where you run and you put down the pole and you vault. So now we come to the coverage of the original Mega Man for the NES. This is very odd to see in this issue. I'm wondering if this game actually predates Nintendo Power. Maybe this game came out before the first issue of Nintendo Power and they never covered it. Kind of like, what was it? I think the original Metroid and the original Super Mario Brothers also came out before Nintendo Power, so they had later issues cover those games. We've got a picture of Dr. Wily here. He does not look like he does in the later games. He looks much more real here. The original Mega Man is very appealing to me. It's got these very cool boss designs here. You've got Bomb Man, Guts Man. It's a difficult game for sure, but it is appealing, and I'm a fan of this game. I remember reading about it in this issue when I was in the library when I was a kid, and this coverage of Mega Man actually inspired me to create my own Robot Masters. It also made me really interested in Mega Man. I mean, I had already played some of Mega Man 3 at that point in time, but yeah, this just really made me want to design my own Robot Masters. And design my own Robot Masters I did. I have an entire collection of Robot Masters that I drew and kind of set up their movesets and everything. And someday I'm going to make a video and just kind of peruse all the bosses that I designed, which were inspired by Mega Man. And I think that might be a fun video to make and to watch. Now, I want to point out that for the Rockman fight, or the Yellow Devil if you prefer, they say, here's the best tip of the game, and they're not lying. It says, fire an elect beam at Rockman's eye, repeatedly hit the select button. The beam will slowly pass through him. It will score several hits on its way through. If your shot is aimed and timed perfectly, one shot will do him in. Absolutely true, and absolutely the best trick in the entire game. You can do the same thing on the final boss too, which is kind of awesome. Alright, the Legend of Zelda comic. Awesome stuff here. I believe I've talked about it before. This might be the final episode of this comic, and this is where things get serious. It starts out with Link defeating Trinex. Trinex is the three-headed serpent thing at the end of Turtle Rock. although one of the heads is more of a stone turtle head, but that's beside the point. Here, it's a three-headed dragon, which is awesome. And Zelda is rescued from the crystal, and there's a huge explosion, and there's this dude named Rome who's helping Link out. So after that, our heroes waltz across a bridge with a very cool silhouette-y kind of image going on there. And then we've got this weird spiky moon hovering in the air. I don't know what that's supposed to be. Is that supposed to be Ganon's tower? I don't... Is that their version of Ganon's tower? I don't know. Oh, and it turns out that Rome, the random guy, he can actually turn into a bird. So they go into the castle, they fight Ghost Aghanim, and ghost versions of the other bosses as well. So this is a very cool episode of the Zelda comic. Ganon looks a lot more badass when he's like fully suited up in his battle armor and wielding a trident. Here he's wearing like a woman's shawl and a beaded necklace. And I think he's otherwise naked. I still remember the space zone from when I played this game. It has zero gravity, so you get to jump around, jump really high as Space Mario. He's wearing an astronaut suit. Believe it or not, my favorite level in Super Mario Land 2, this entire overworld, all these really cool zones, my favorite level is the entrance, the intro level, the very beginning, because it's the only level in this game that's like a typical, regular, ordinary Mario level. And at this point in time, when I played this game, I really just wanted a simple, regular Mario game, because I didn't have a console yet when I played this. I only had the Game Boy. And I really wanted to play, Super Mario Bros. 3. Just regular side-scrolling, hitting blocks, collecting stuff. And the first level of this game fits the bill for that. The rest of the game are all kind of weird, gimmicky levels. I mean, they're awesome. They each have their own theme. But, yeah, you can't go wrong with that intro stage. Anyway, onward. We've got WWF Superstars for the Game Boy of all things. I think it's interesting the people that they chose to show here. First of all, I think it's awesome that Macho Man Randy Savage is your cover boy over here. He's looking pretty fly, and good choice there. But then here's the weird part. The three guys that they chose to show over here. You got the Hulkster, which is a given, right? But then you got the Undertaker, which at this point in time, the Undertaker was not a top guy. I mean, he had main evented pay-per-views, but it's just weird having him here over, say, like the Ultimate Warrior or even Sergeant Slaughter, But regardless, or Macho Man for that matter. And then this is even weirder. You've got the Mountie. I'm pretty sure that the Mountie was just like a mid-level guy. So it's just bizarre that he's included with these other two guys. And they're the only three characters that Nintendo Power actually covers in this issue. And now we've got Super Mario Adventures, another fun, colorful episode. Now, this would not fly in 2017. The princess tells Bowser, "I will not marry you." Bowser tries really hard to get the princess to marry him. And she's just like, "No, don't touch me." And Bowser's like, "Come on, you're gonna learn to love me." And she's like, "Get away from me." And then Bowser says, "I need a hypnotist." And Magic Koopa appears and he casts a love spell on the princess. And now she's like totally in love with Bowser and worships him. And Bowser's just like, "Oh my god." The princess is brainwashed and she's gonna marry this guy. Unfortunately for Bowser, but fortunately for us, Mario interrupts the wedding procession and ambushes Bowser with a jump from the sky. So that's pretty awesome. Alright, Counselor's Corner. What have we got here? Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. I remember reading this in the library, and Zelda was a series that really fascinated me. Even though I hadn't really played any Zelda games when I first read this. it really interested me though, just the feel of it, the look of it, just the idea of having this adventure in Hyrule. But regardless, questions we got here: how do I get the flutes? How do I reach Misery Mire? And how do I open the door in the Ice Palace? And we've got some really nice screenshots here of different areas. I just want to say something about all three of these. The flute is probably the saddest moment in the game because you have to go to that glade with the boy that's singing to the animals, but he's just a ghost, and it's sad. And reaching Misery Mire is one of my favorite parts because it's one of the couple of parts of the game where it rains. It's late in the game, you transport to the Dark World and it's just pouring down raining, there's lightning. It's really awesome for the few minutes that it lasts. And finally, how do I open the door in the Ice Palace? That question is absolutely necessary. That is one of the most confusing parts of the entire game. I got stuck there for a while when I played the game because unfortunately I did not have this issue. I didn't have the power. So yeah, it took me a while to figure out that Ice Palace puzzle. You have to push a block from the floor above, which I didn't even think was a thing at the time. Or you can just do the dungeons out of order because the next dungeon after that, you get a cane that creates blocks. So you can go back and use that to compress the switch and you don't have to bother with the upper floor. Anywho. Finally, we've got Mega Man in Dr. Wily's Revenge, which is brought to us by David Carlson, who looks like he's about to go on a murderous rampage. What is the best order to fight the first 4 bosses? Then you got the second set of bosses, the guys who don't get their own stages. You got Flash Man, you got Quick Man, you got Bubble Man, and you got Heat Man. Anyway, Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, a fast-moving RPG. This game is cool. I really like Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. It's got a really compelling, interesting little world. It's got the 4 elemental crystals. It actually bases different areas around the 4 elemental crystals. Now, Nintendo Power unfortunately only covers the first part of the game, as they often did with these bigger games. They only cover the first and second dungeons, I believe. I think it's funny that oftentimes with RPGs, Nintendo Power would only cover the first couple of dungeons, and RPGs, that's the genre that you do need maps for. So for Nintendo Power to just cover the beginning of the game, it's not that helpful, And then you have action games where all the levels are shaped like this, and Nintendo Power will cover like 13 levels, over 8 pages. And it's like, you don't need to cover this much. Take 6 of those pages away. Like, even if it's a good game, I mean, there's plenty of great side scrollers, but take 6 of those pages or 5 of those pages away and give them to the nearest RPG and maybe cover something beyond the first 2 dungeons. Just a thought. Anyway, Super Star Wars, The Force is With You for Super Nintendo. This game is really cool and it's also really hard. Really difficult game. It has a lot of interesting stuff that the movie doesn't have. It has bosses that didn't appear in the movie. The Sarlacc pit monster is actually the first boss, and in this game, it's an Audi. Anyway, so you got the land of the Sand People. You got the land of the Banthas. Look at this, the mutant Womp Rat. You actually fight a gigantic Womp Rat as a boss in this game. And there's some speeder levels where you fly around Tatooine, and those are always fun. What else do we have? We have the Cantina. Ooh, I remember the Cantina. And so the boss of that level is the Kalar monster. You just see it for a second in the movie. But in this game, it's a full-on boss in the Cantina, which I think is awesome. Let's see what else we've got. We've got the Escape from Mos Eisley, and then we've got Rebellion in Space. See, this is where the game gets really cool. You've got the last 5 levels or so where you're taking down the Death Star, The final 2 levels are my favorite because you've got the attack on the Death Star where you fly the X-Wing, and then you've got the trench battle where you're like making your way to the laundry chute to fire the torpedoes and win the day. The poster for this issue, Batman Returns. They make it look so compelling. You've got all these distinct areas, and each one has its own boss, and the bosses look really interesting as well. Each one's like a really cool looking ship. And yeah, this game is fantastic. They show you the first 8 areas here, and when I read this issue I thought that was the end of the game. I thought the 8th area was the final level. But no, there's actually 4 more levels after that. There's Area 12, which is the real final area. And I believe at some point later on I rented Space Megaforce and discovered that the music in this game is outstanding. It's really tremendous. And once I got to Area 10 or so, I hit a total wall because the boss of Area 10 was just out of my skill level. So I wasn't able to beat the game when I rented it. But then at some later point I bought the game for like $10 at like a pawn store or something. And I was able to finally defeat the boss of Area 10. And I reached Area 12 and beat the game. It all happened in the span of like an hour. And I remember the final boss music being pretty incredible. While I was playing like the second to last level, the phone rang and my mom answered the phone. And it was someone, she didn't tell me who, and she's like, "Oh great, okay, thank you," and she hung up and I was like, "Who is that?" And she's like, "Oh no, nothing, important." So I went back to playing the game and I'm thinking, that's odd. So I get through like the second to last level, and then she's like, "Hey, we have to go out. We have to go and run an errand." And I was like, "Okay, hold on. Let me try to beat the last level." And this was my first run at the end of Space Megaforce. I got through the final level in like 1 or 2 passes. I really had the game's number at that point. I knew what I was doing. So maybe 20 minutes later, had the game beaten, all done. I was just stoked on Space Megaforce. I had such a blast with it, and I was having a great day. And then I went out to run this errand with my mom, and next thing I know, we're at Media Play, and I'm like, wait, why are we here? Do they have Zelda? And like I was figuring it out, and I'm just like, we're here to get Zelda, aren't we? And she's like, oh no, we're here for something else. And so we go in there, and there was Link's Awakening in this little gold box, just really cool little Zelda box. And I'll never forget, like, talk about having the best day ever. You just finished playing an awesome game that you really wanted to finish but never could, and you finally did it, and you got the rush of finally finishing this amazing game, and then you get surprised with this even more amazing game that you've been wanting for weeks and weeks and weeks. It was a good day, I have to say. Anyway, onward, we've got Axlay, which is also a tremendous shooter for the Super NES. It's got some really neat variety to it, like each stage gives you either a vertical scrolling or horizontal scrolling setup, and between stages they alternate between the two. So you'll have like a vertical stage and a horizontal stage. Yes, it's like Contra. It's exactly like Contra. And it's got some of the coolest bosses I've ever seen, like this giant xenomorph looking mech walker thing. And then you've got Whaler, who is a giant dude made of fire, and he has like a Terminator skull under the fire. Very Terminator-inspired boss there. We've got Faceball 2000, which is another game that I've beaten. This issue is full of games that I later finished. This game is a lot of fun. It's got great music. It's very challenging. You basically move around a maze in first person and fire shots at other faceball things. So now we have the top 20. Who's leading the top 20 this month? November 1992. Super Mario Bros. 3 is on top of the NES. Super Mario Land is on top of the Game Boy. And Super Mario World is actually number 3 on the Super NES. Street Fighter 2 and A Link to the Past actually had Super Mario World beat. big surprise there. Metroid 2 Return of Samus is a solid second place on the Game Boy, so that's pretty cool. What else do we have? Oh, we have some crossword puzzles here. Whoever had this issue before me did not write in the issue, and I really appreciate that. So here we've got George and Rob and Jade. They now have Jade, Jade Hall, the guest reviewer. He won a contest, and he played a bunch of games with George and Rob and joined them for their reviews at the end of the issue. That's kind of cool. Nintendo Power had some really cool contests for the readers. So yeah, let's see what they think about Super Mario Land 2. Everything about this game is top notch. I like the bunny suit. Jade says this game is going to be a big hit. Yeah, cool, man. You know, it's cool to just have a regular reader just taking part. We've also got coverage of Battle Clash here. Battle Clash is an excellent Super Scope game for the Super NES. It's all one-on-one battles with mechs, and it's all about just knowing where to hit them, you know, hitting weak points, trying to kind of knock off their armor. And each mech is very unique from the others, and you've got some really interesting designs and fights in Battle Clash. Super Star Wars. George says Star Wars fans are going to love this game. That is definitely true. Matter of fact, Super Star Wars, this game and this issue covering it, got me more into Star Wars than I was before that. You know, before that it was just this cool movie that I had watched as a kid that I liked. But when I was a little older kid, and I was reading this issue and reading about the game Super Star Wars, it made me realize that, hey, this world is actually pretty awesome. I want to kind of revisit Star Wars. So it kind of rekindled my interest in the series. So what's coming up? We got Pack Watch. Anything interesting on the way? Mega Man 5, and it looks exactly like Mega Man 4. So yeah, you know, more Mega Man, always a good thing. Well, almost always. There were some pretty bad ones later on, but the less said, the better. Yeah, that does it for volume 42 of Nintendo Power Super Star Wars. Fun time. Really enjoyed taking a look at this issue. It's great to see it again, quite frankly, and it brings back a lot of memories of hanging out in that library as a kid and just reading. You know, not just reading Nintendo Power, but reading in general, just finding interesting books to read. I discovered some pretty epic stories just hanging out in the library as a kid. I discovered Lord of the Rings that way. I discovered the Prydain Chronicles, which culminate with the High King, the one book that I have from the series, the High King, the fifth and final book in the Prydain series. And I love this series. And you follow this boy right here, Taran. In the first book, he's just a kid. He's like 8 years old. And then over the course of the 5 books, he grows up. And in the final book, he's like, I don't know, 17 or so. And he's like a man, and he's a hero. And it's really awesome to follow him as he grows up and starts noticing girls and learns how to wield a sword. Matter of fact, this series has a lot in common with the Zelda series. So if you like Zelda and you like the story of Zelda, check out the Prydain Chronicles if you can find them. And I'm sure you can find them pretty easily. It's a great series. I'd put it on par with Lord of the Rings in a lot of ways. But yeah, just things like that. I just loved spending time in the library and discovering as a kid. And on that note, thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time.